We chat with Police Chief Paul McDonald and have all the information you need about voting early. On this episode of Barnstable Today, it's Tuesday, October 25th, 2016. I'm Sarah Mantle.
Of course, last week we didn't have a whole heck of a lot to talk about. This week is completely different. A number of pretty serious topics to discuss. Want to start out first, of course, hearing reports of a murder over the weekend in Hyannis on Beth Lane. What can you tell me about this incident?
On Saturday morning, approximately 1:30 in the morning, we responded to the area of 133 Beth Lane, Hyannis. We'd been there a couple of times earlier in the evening for loud parties. Apparently, it was the after-hours party there. When the officers got there, there was one individual down in the street. He was bleeding from the abdomen area. The first two officers got there. They immediately began first aid. Upon the arrival of the secondary officers, they set up an inner and outer perimeter. They realized that the individual had actually been stabbed multiple times in the abdomen area. After that, numerous witnesses came forward. A suspect was identified very, very quickly. Kelly Ridley was identified. Apparently got into a verbal confrontation, which escalated, and Mr. Ridley had stabbed the individual. The individual was brought to the hospital, underwent surgery, approximately 5 o'clock in the morning. Unfortunately, he passed away.
Indeed, and so we are hearing as well that, as you mentioned, Kelly Ridley has been arrested for that, and he is a young man who has been in trouble with the law before, correct?
He has been arrested multiple times. Naturally, he was on probation at the time of this. He's only 18 years old. He's a recent graduate of Barnstable High School. These individuals, they were known to each other. What happened is they got a verbal confrontation. That's why we were called earlier in the evening. However, that was broken up. The individuals were separated. They both went their ways. One of them came back to the house, and Mr. Ridley actually lives at that residence, 133 Beth Lane. And then the confrontation continued. They went outside, and unfortunately, he got stabbed.
Indeed. And so, was there another victim as well, Chief, in this incident on Beth Lane?
Yes, there was a second individual, a Michael James. He was somewhat older, 43 years old, and I believe he is the uncle of Mr. Ridley. And it's unsure of what his involvement is in it. We believe he was actually trying to separate the two individuals, and sometime while he was trying to do that, he also got stabbed in the abdomen. He was brought to Cape Cod Hospital in a critical condition, but he is expected to make a full recovery.
Sure, and obviously this is being investigated as a homicide, and Mr. Ridley now is being held without bail.
He was originally arrested on probation warrants, but as of yesterday, he was subsequently charged with murder, and he was arraigned yesterday and is being held without bail.
Great. So, Chief, of course, definitely, I think one of those isolated incidents, certainly not anything that I think residents in the area should be too terribly concerned about. Violence, of course.
No, absolutely not. This was not a random event. These two individuals were well known to each other, well known to us. It's just a very, very unfortunate incident. As we know about the car crash, which happened yesterday, this has been a tough weekend for the town of Barnstable. Even though these kids, one was murdered and the other kid is probably going to spend the rest of his life in jail. That's unfortunate.
Indeed. Chief, let's talk a little bit about that crash, of course, outside of the jurisdiction of Barnstable Police, but affecting 3 local people, 2 notably Barnstable High School graduates. Certainly a tragedy for our community.
Oh, it certainly is. The Galvin kid, I don't know the parents that well, but Kippy Diggs, I know Kippy Diggs very, very well. He's a town employee, he works for DPW, and Kippy's been around for a long, long time, a real nice kid, and it's very unfortunate for his son. I don't know how you survive this. As a parent of 2, I have no idea how anybody survives this incident. It's horrific.
Absolutely, and certainly, one of those unavoidable things. Be very careful getting on the highway in the correct direction. Certainly, but that was not their fault. It was the other driver.
Well, that's unfortunate. What was it? 2 months ago, up in Burlington, Vermont. I mean, the similar thing happened. I think 5 kids from one of the local high schools was killed when another car was traveling in the wrong direction. And it hit the car head on and killed 5 kids from one of the local high schools up in Burlington, Vermont.
So, Chief, over this weekend, Drug Take Back Day, of course, I know that there's a receptacle that is there 24/7 at Barnstable Police Headquarters, but this is really a day to kind of raise awareness for that. So tell me a little bit about how that went.
Well, it actually was last Saturday. We have it twice a year. And this last week we had it, and we only had 10 individuals came in, which was the lowest number by far. But it just shows that the receptacle that we have downstairs in the front lobby, people are using it on a daily basis, because when all said and done, we turned in 17 boxes to DEA with approximately 368 pounds of narcotics that was turned in. So I think that was the most that we've ever turned in, even though the least number of people showed up on that Saturday morning, because people now, they're not waiting for the DEA turn-in day. They come in every day, and they're using the receptacle all the time. So it's a great thing for the community.
Sure, Chief. And just why is it important for people to dispose of their unwanted, unused, or expired prescription drugs that using that receptacle or on the drug take-back days?
Well, if you're looking at most of the B&Es and burglaries that we are covering, in the old days when I first was a police officer, people break in the house because they're stealing TVs, their stereos, or whatever. Now when people break in the houses, they're going right to the medicine cabinet because they're looking for any type of narcotics that you might have in the medicine cabinet. And also, the other thing is, we do not want people to improperly dispose of these things. We don't want them flushed down the toilet. Don't put them down the sink. We don't want them to go into the water supply. If you do not want to turn them in the police department, you can certainly turn them into the landfill, but you have to grind them up first, mix them up with coffee grounds, and then they can be disposed of, and then they will be incinerated. But the easiest way is just bring them into the PD, put them in the front lobby, and we'll take care of it.
Absolutely. Good to know. Chief, I want to go back and talk just briefly about a sentencing that I read about today, of course, in connection with an incident that happened back in 2012, I believe.
Yes, Andrew Stanley. That was a murder on Otis Lane. This was the second trial. 2 individuals were already sentenced, already found guilty, I believe, 2 weeks ago. And they are serving a life sentence for first-degree murder. The third suspect, he pled out last week, and I believe he pled out to a 16 years and a day sentence, which means he has to do a minimum of 16 years. But after that, he's also been charged with a federal offense. We'll have to do 4 years after that, so he's looking at a minimum of 20 years.
Indeed.
And there's one last individual, there's one last individual, I believe that's trial is set for next month.
Great. Well, we'll stay up to date on that.
Early voting has begun here at Barnstable Town Hall, and as you can see behind me, many residents are taking advantage of it. Let's hear more about this with Town Clerk Ann Quirk. So, a huge turnout already for early voting. This is the first day that it's available. Did you expect this big of a turnout?
No, I did not, but I didn't really know what to expect. And look at this. We're crazy busy. It's wonderful.
Now, when everyone that's counting or voting today, when will those ballots be counted?
Thank you. They'll be counted on Election Day. Just like the absentee ballots, they will be looked at and put through the tabulator on Election Day.
Now, I'm really interested to see, and I can't wait till after the election and we can talk a little bit more about how the results went. I'm interested to see, do you think that early voting will increase turnout, or do you think that the numbers will stay the same?
That's a great question, and I'm honestly hoping that that is what's going to happen, that we'll have a higher turnout. But we don't know what to base it on. I can tell you that normally by this time we have many more absentee ballots than we do this year, because people were waiting for early voting. So we'll have to see how that all pans out.
What made you want to come out and vote early today?
I got to get this painful process over with. I can't stand it another day.
You just wanted to put it behind you.
Oh, please.
This is your first time voting?
It is, yeah.
Are you very excited about it?
I am.
And what made you want to come out today for early voting?
I signed up for an absentee, but I no longer needed it, so I want to make sure I can vote without any issue.
What made you want to come out today and vote early?
Oh, I've always been a political junkie. I was a political science major. I've never missed an election.
And any reason you wanted to come vote early today, or just?
Yeah, life gets busy, and I just didn't want to have an excuse not to vote.